So I want to talk with you guys a bit about portfolios today and about sort of the next part in thinking about how you're developing yours. So at this point, I'm still developing mine. It's not really ready yet to be out there to be seen. I do have it published because I was testing a few things earlier, but I was only doing it just to see how it actually loaded versus how the editor shows it. So right now I've got home, statement, education, art, design, service. I'm thinking about, I wasn't originally going to do education. I was going to just have some projects from when I was going through school and whatnot in my art and design section. But there's some aspects to education that I think are important that I did that aren't necessarily projects. So I think I do want education, but I think I'm going to mix it with statement. I had an about section before, and this just became like an overly long-winded statement, so I didn't want to delete what I wrote, so I just removed it from navigation. Right, you can do hide from navigation, and then I replaced it with statement, which is much shorter, and this is more of what sort of an artist statement should look like. So I think I'm going to have another section down here for education and change this tab to actually be about, and so those two will make sense together. On my home page, I've got a couple different things. I've got some projects I want to show off, which I've just about finished this page. I haven't started this one yet, but I'll work on that one after I finish this one. And I've got a little bit of my perspective, which is tied to some degree to statement, but not exactly. They might overlap a little bit too much. I might need to go back and kind of read and decide exactly what I want to say, and then sort of some stuff that I'm currently working on, learning about, and then influences. Does yours have to have all of these same things? No, not necessarily. That's kind of up to you, right? But these are what I've decided to include on mine. And this might change in, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a year from now. I might change it, and that's okay. So when we go to art and design, my projects, I'm going to show you the one I'm working on, the first one. And this is sort of an example to kind of show you guys. So before I do this, actually, I'm going to jump to a different tab. I want to show you this guy's portfolio. So he's a pretty famous op artist who was big in the 1960s, gained a lot of attention in the 1960s. He was born in 1930, and his name's a little tricky to pronounce. Polish name, Anaskiewicz, I think that's how it's pronounced. But he has his website here, and there's different types of websites, right? You could have something like this, and this is not really a portfolio. This is more of really like a gallery to show his work. It's not really a portfolio as far as like getting hired, right? Or finding people who may want to work with you, or who may want you to attend their school or attend a special program or something, right? This is more of just a gallery of his work. And so when we talk about portfolios related to like career areas or education areas, it needs to be a little bit more developmental. It needs to show your progress as you move through something, not just show the end products. So if I go back here, this is a little game that I made in Scratch, and if you have Computer Science 1 with me, then you should have seen it, right? Well, maybe you didn't see it, but there was a link. You had the opportunity to see it, right? So it's a little game where you play as a bacteriophage, and you have to go and try and capture red blood cells and avoid white blood cells, right? So I could just show the work. I could even just embed the game into this, right? But that doesn't really help the viewer understand the process, right? And the thoughts about the work, right? So you should include stuff about like how you made it, the planning, some of those things. Now, unfortunately, with this game, I didn't really have any planning. I just went straight sort of into it and just started making stuff. I had a lot of planning and ideas and stuff in my head, actually, but I didn't put any of it on paper, and that is unfortunate. I could try to recreate some of the planning and stuff that I had in my head on here, and that would be fine, and that might be something I add later. So I was looking at this, and I was thinking it's pretty done. I've got some of the opening screens. I've got some of the graphics that I made, right? This might be a little too much as far as opening screens go. I might trim that down a little bit. And then I've got this one here, and some of the programming to help understand how it works. I forgot a note in here. You can see some of the pseudo randomized behavior coded on the right. Okay, and these actually all animate. So these are image carousels where I have set the auto start and transition speed. Okay, and so it goes through and it loops through all of these. So if I view the published site, you can see them animating here, right? And I like that. Now, a thought that I had after doing this is that, alright, I started working on this a little bit more. When I was doing this, I realized that not having any screenshots of the gameplay itself seems a little strange. So I've got the opening screens, I've got the little sprites and stuff that I made with a little bit of the programming here, right? And so then I realized, like, well, that feels a little weird to not actually have what it looks like right together. So I've got some screenshots for that I'm going to put in, and then I've got an area here for future considerations, right? And I've got just a little placeholder that I've grabbed here and giving credit to where that picture came from. Okay, so now I didn't actually ask permission to use this photo. A lot of times if you give credit, a lot of times people won't care, but technically you still don't necessarily have permission to have it. This person could contact me and say, like, hey, not cool, like, you need to take my stuff down, and I should do that, otherwise I could be sued, right? Because just because you give credit, right, when I give credit, I'm not plagiarizing, right? I'm not saying it's mine, I'm saying it's someone else's, but that doesn't mean that I have the right to actually use it, right? So most of the time giving credit, someone's cool with that because, you know, anyone who sees it, they're going to be aware of where you got that from, and it's sort of, you know, a little bit of publicity, right? But they don't have to be okay with that. They can say, like, hey, no, you gotta take my stuff down, and that's within their right, and then you would need to do so, or they could press charges if they wanted to, right? So just be aware of that. Anyway, going back up here, right, I've got the idea that I want to show some gameplay in there. So I'm going to duplicate that and say gameplay, and then I think I'm going to use, I'm not going to duplicate this like I did before. Instead I'm going to grab, I think, this one. Well, that's fine. And then I'll just drag it up to go there. And then I think I'm just going to delete the extra text boxes because I don't really have a whole lot that I want to say about it. I just want to show it. So copy and paste that, and paste one more, put it there. Okay. And then I've already taken some screenshots of gameplay earlier before I started this video, so I'm just going to add them in. Alright. Okay. And this one. Alright. Now the gameplay itself is not a perfect square, and you can see that, like, this looks sort of like odd, like jutting out there. So these are cropped. So I'm going to click this button on all of them to put them to the proper aspect ratio, so it shows the whole thing instead of cropping them. And that looks fine. And I think I'm okay with this overall, right? And I think that looks pretty good. So this is sort of more of what, like, a portfolio entry should look like. So that way someone can get a better feel for your work, your style, right? The aspects that go into your thinking and all that stuff, because that's really more of what they want to see. They're not just interested in just the end product. Would you refresh? There we go. They also want to see the other aspects too, because keep in mind, they're not just possibly hiring you or possibly bringing you to their school or into their program or whatever for you to make things. It's also to work with their people, right, and to work with their system. So they want more than just seeing your work. They want to see the process involved too. So this is now a pretty good portfolio entry, right? And so that's one of the big differences between, like, a portfolio entry and, like, a gallery, is a portfolio entry actually shows the work and the way that you work behind what you've created, not just a gallery. And there's nothing wrong with galleries. Galleries can be beautiful, and they can be great ways to show your work to, like, maybe people who want to buy your work. But as far as, like, getting hired somewhere or being accepted to a program, you're not looking for just a gallery of work. You want to show more than that, right? So that way they can understand some of the thinking and whatnot that goes behind it. So think about what you want to do with your portfolio and what you want to share with it. You may not be creating a full entry yet for something, and that's okay. But think about, what sort of things you do want to include on there and what sort of things you do want to add for right now for, a current update.